Good morning, everybody.
And morning is broken.
We are your consecrated
I'm
hosts.
Father Jeff, consecrated by holy orders.
Jonathan, consecrated by baptism.
Midweek.
Yet again.
Yet again, midweek. September.
I wish.
It is almost November.
Yeah.
October 28th.
It's creeping up on us.
2020.
It's sneaking up behind us.
How are you?
Good.
Good. It's still cold.
It's warming up.
This past I was kind of dubious if it was even going to snow this past weekend, and there's still traces of it here and there. But it's not gonna be bad. It's gonna get back to normal-ish, I think, and fall will continue, and then maybe we'll get an early winter, and I don't know. Doesn't really matter because I'm indoors.
It matters.
It
But
matters.
for the sake of a sorrowful passion, it's gonna get above freezing.
You can offer it up.
Goodness.
Look at all this offering up you get to do.
That is some of the worst terms
And
ever used.
this is a perfect opportunity, Jonathan, to kick your butt in gear and get that garage cleaned out so you can move your vehicle into the garage.
I need to sell a little kitchen table and 6 chairs as well as a couch. So once I do that leaves a lot more room in the garage.
Ah, this is old furniture that you are not keeping?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Well, if you want to buy a couch and a table and chairs that are in so-so condition.
The couch is in worse condition. The table and chairs is.
If you've got a cabin or a basement, for the kids, this would be kind of that perfect.
That couch.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what it is. So give Jonathan a ring.
The table and chairs were just a little too big.
Oh, for your new space.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. All right. Well,
the dining area is shaped a little bit differently, so it just didn't work out.
It's I've got at the rectory. I've got this giant dining room table, and it's a lovely table. But if you want to put the leaves in it, it comes with 2 leaves.
There's 2 leaves.
There's 2 leaves that it expands to quite the size, and the table would be up against the window and sticking out the arch that forms the dining room, and I've done that before. But then you have to pull the table out, and it looks all cockeyed and weird, and it's perfect with the size it is. It's not bad even with 1 leaf in there, but once you do 2, it's a little tight.
Yeah.
Just for the space. So
yeah.
I know
So we could have made it work. It just with a high chair sometimes, and then if you have guests over walking around, it just a little cumbersome.
It is.
So,
have you had a housewarming yet?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you did. That's right. The one I wasn't invited to.
Yep.
Well, I had a beautiful housewarming gift to give you, Jonathan, but apparently you don't want it.
I'll invite you over at some point so you can bless the house. Get rid of any demons.
It needs to be blessed.
It does need to be blessed. I even need to get some holy water and sprinkle it all over the place myself.
Good Lord, Jonathan, what are you waiting for?
What are you
Get
doing
the
today,
garage
Father
cleaned
Jeff?
out. Get your car in there. All right. Well, today is the Feast of 2 Apostles, Saints Simon and Jude. Simon, not Peter, the Zealot. So this is Simon the Zealot. One could say that he was one of those political terrorists of the Roman era. He was. When you were a zealot, the Zealot party they were looking for the overthrow of Rome. Probably, I don't know if this guy ran with Barabbas or if it was, the guys who were crucified with Jesus. They were called revolutionaries. They sometimes are called thieves, but that might just be a polite way of saying revolutionary. I don't know. So the Lord chose quite the people to be part of his entourage.
Yeah, you don't really hear zealots as a positive ever.
No, not really. So he was definitely a political activist who wanted the overthrow, probably, of Rome from Israel, and somehow was converted to the Lord, and there's that. Jude, not the other Judas. So there's Judas and Judas Iscariot, and so Judas, the other one, is often called Jude, I think. And because he's not the Judas Iscariot, he's, I think, given the patronage of lost causes like as almost as an intercessor for his namesake, the more famous Judas, infamous Judas, as it were. So right. Judas, we don't know a whole lot about him. I really don't. I think I said that last week. Simon and Jude, though, we know that they did end up preaching kind of down into Egypt and then into Persia, which would be modern-day Iraq. And so that's where they kind of went, and then they were martyred together. So this is the feast of those two who lived and died together, Simon and Jude. But whenever we celebrate the apostles, it's always just a reminder of the foundation stones of our faith. That if it weren't for the apostles preaching the kerygma, preaching Jesus Christ and the good news, well, we would not know Jesus Christ, we wouldn't know the faith, we wouldn't have anything to pass on, the resurrection would not have been announced. So it really just brings us back to who we are and what we're all about, how ancient our faith is.
We should do a study on, or I should do a study on the other apostles, not Peter, James, and John.
The other apostles.
Yeah, so not Peter, James, and John, the ones that we know a lot about, and it's like, yeah, Peter, James, John, but...
Well, even like, James. Do you know much about James?
No, but I mean, he was there. He was there at least.
They were all there.
But but
yeah, when you think about the apostles, Peter, okay, James and John, the brothers of Zebedee, got it. Matthew, we know a bit about his story, the tax collector. Mm-hmm. We see and the gospel writer, and then you've got Thomas, and we know a little bit about Thomas, the doubter, and he comes into a couple. He questions a couple things throughout, and then you've got Judas Iscariot, who of course is infamous for his role, and then we just talked about Simon the Zealot and Jude the other, and then there is James the other James the lesser, or James the greater, I think it's the lesser, and then you've got Nathaniel, sometimes also known as Bartholomew. So Bartholomew, Nathaniel, the guy from Galilee he wasn't from Galilee. He besmirched those who were kind of talked down. Besmirched. That's not quite the right word either. But he basically dissed them. Those Galileans, those Nazareans. Could anything good come from there? And then there are two others. Philip, who is we know a little bit about Philip from his questions and whatnot that he announces or that he comes up with. And then who's the missing apostle? Peter, James, John, Matthew, Thomas.
The other James?
Simon,
no, we talked about the other James.
Judas Iscariot. There's another one, and I'm forgetting him, and it's probably the most obvious. It'll come to me. We'll announce it. And then, of course, there's Matthias, who was the apostle
13.
chosen to take Judas's place, and then there was Paul, who was an apostle chosen out of the ordinary course of things, and a few others that we regard as apostles, but not like the 12.
Right. Well, I know James, like the way of St. James, El Camino.
Right.
So that's what I know of him, and so obviously he went down, and you follow where he...
No, never mind. I was going to say it's John, but no, John. I already mentioned John. It'll come to me. So we were yesterday we were beginning to talk about just in general the political landscape, the sphere of what our responsibility as citizens are, the church's role in the world, particularly the role of the laity in being real salt and light in the world, salt of the earth and light for the world. The role of the clergy is to nourish the people of God so that they can go out and be that presence in the world. Today I just wanted to kind of then take a look at that. If we're going to have a well-formed conscience, one of the things that we have to always keep in mind is, all right, then how is the kingdom of God, which is a spiritual reality, how is that embodied in a physical material world? Sure. What does that look like? So what are the principles for a kingdom of peace and justice, or to put it another way, the social teachings of the church? So we know a lot of the theological stuff, the creed, the sacramental stuff, but what are the social teachings of the church?
Sure.
And there's 4 pillars that I want to discuss today.
And it gets to just, maybe the greater purpose of this is to understand how we find out what issues are actually important or more important, and how to give weight to certain issues.
Right.
Whether
not everything is of the same importance, and this is true in your own home. When you have to decide, sometimes I know there's a struggle to what bills am I going to pay this week because something's going to have to wait till next week or the next paycheck, or what things are we going to buy in the grocery store and what things are we not going to buy, and just how am I going to spend my time because I only have so much of it. You have to wait. You have to give weight to things. You have to give importance to things. Not everything is created equal.
It's true.
Yeah. So I guess fundamentally, if we look at the moral teaching of the church, which then would unfold into the social teaching of the church, the basic principle that defines all of human morality, or our Christian morality, is the dignity of the human person. Mm-hmm. That if you don't have, if the human person is not recognized as created in the image and likeness of God, and if that isn't seen with inestimable value, then society collapses, because the individual is not regarded, and society is made up of individuals. So we've got ourselves a problem.
Yeah, that kind of sets the floor foundation of where things can begin.
Right.
If you don't have at least that, you don't have anything.
Right. So when you talk about the dignity of the human person, it recognizes that all human beings, men and women, children and old, from conception until natural death, there is a dignity about this person, because this person is unique and irrepeatable, and a soul and body that belong only to him or to her, and that's got to be safeguarded and protected and recognized, like I said, without value. Like it's priceless. The human person is priceless. So you cannot say, oh, well,
it costs this much amount of money to keep this person alive every year.
Well, I know, and those are real things.
Yeah.
I mean, they do studies that, if you are a new family today and you have a child today, like what the cost of raising that child will be for the next 18 years.
I don't like some of those studies because that's another
It's an
thing.
average.
It's average, and it tells you that you're paying for housing, but you're probably going to have housing anyways, and it doesn't really discount depending on the study. But yes, you can put a cost, and you can find out. You could do research and keep tabs. I spent this much money on Joshua,
right,
up till now in his life.
Right. Yeah. And then some things, like you said, are going to overlap. Mm-hmm. That your other kids benefit from the house that you have. So I guess you could divide that out, that your second child isn't going to be as expensive as the first child because some of those costs are already figured in. But, when you start doing that, it sounds like there's something wrong about this. We're quantifying with a dollar amount the human person.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fundamental things just about the human person that we have to understand. So there are some issues that just rise straight to the top in protection of the human person and recognizing the dignity of that person.
For sure.
Obviously, the protection of life in the womb. That is an important step in order to highlight how important every individual person is. So the dignity of the person in the womb. So abortion or anything like that that's sometimes referred to as women's health or reproductive health, those are misnomers. That's not what they're talking about. That's not what they mean. They're talking about abortion, and it's a direct destruction of an innocent human being. Something I think that people don't think about that deals with life in the womb also are the issues of in vitro fertilization and fertility manipulation.
Oh yeah.
That is also gravely immoral. And when people stop and think about, I don't think a lot of people even know the process. I mean, take a separate it from the fact, first of all, that it disrupts the sexual act, and that the sexual act has nothing to do with the conception of life. So the love of husband and wife does not generate this thing.
Sometimes they don't even use the husband and wife.
Exactly. It becomes a scientific laboratory procedure. But in order to do in vitro fertilization, you have to gather multiple egg cells and multiple sperm cells, and then you forcibly join them. So in a syringe, you pierce the gamete, the egg cell, and you inject the sperm cell. And you do that with multiple. So let's say we have eight fertilized eggs here. So
usually it's even more than that too.
Yeah. You've got, just as an example, you have 8 new lives that have just been created in a laboratory to see which one will be viable. So you have forcibly conceived these things, people now, and because once conception happens, there is new life. God always keeps his promises, even if we do not keep ours. And this was his plan, that when this happens, I will infuse a soul. So we have just created multiple lives, probably only one of which is going to be inserted into a uterus to actually grow. The others will either be indefinitely frozen or they will be discarded and destroyed. So in vitro fertilization always causes abortions, always the destruction of human life. Not to mention the fact, just the basic biological fact of joining together an egg and a sperm that may not be a good match. That I think a lot of people imagine that the first sperm to get to the egg wins the prize. But that's not how it works. While many sperm will surround the egg cell, one of them will penetrate the exterior of the egg cell because it will have a chemical match to that and be able to burrow itself in and then create the little force field that it does to keep all of the other sperm out. But what happens is there's a sort of natural selection that when we manipulate that, we end up creating life that is not perhaps in the common good, because it's not what nature would have selected.
Right.
So it gets very dicey when we start playing God and not seeing all of the pieces on the table. So in vitro fertilization, all those kind of fertility things are a grave offense against human life.
Cloning, which I don't know. I don't think they've cloned any humans yet.
I don't know.
I hope not.
Maybe in other countries, perhaps. That we
maybe.
Don't know about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At least it's not well known. I remember it was a huge thing when Dolly the sheep.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was in seminary when that happened. When the first sheep was cloned. And then the talk about cloning human beings, or at least human parts, so that we can, do all of those things. So, and then of course on the other end of the spectrum, euthanasia and mercy killing, or the right to suicide, or things like that, is a destruction of the human person.
Oh my gosh.
So these are all direct. There can't be any discussion about the merits of any of those things, because those are all gravely immoral. So the dignity of the human person, if the human person is not being respected and safeguarded, then the moral order fails and the social order fails. So that's one of the principles of Catholic social teaching. Another principle of Catholic social teaching is the principle of subsidiarity. Do you have any idea what that means? I mean, is that a word familiar to ears? I've
known of it in just certain examples in certain contexts.
Okay.
I don't know in the whole Catholic realm.
Yeah. How would you describe it? Don't want to put you on the spot or anything, Jonathan.
No, but there is a
pop quiz.
So subsidiarity. So subsidize. There is an order of position-ish. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want. If that's the right term.
I know it's hard to put words to.
But there's an order of things, and so I think if you have like a corporation,
mm-hmm.
you have the CEO. Then you have people below them.
Right.
And then all the way down to the janitorial staff and everything else. And if the janitor has a problem with his supervisor, he's probably not just going to go and start emailing the CEO, because that does not follow the procedure of subsidiarity. The person in command, next person in command, is probably who he should see.
Well, yes. So, and it's not just a chain of command question, but the chain of command comes out of the principle of subsidiarity. That subsidiarity basically says responsibility is always given to those who are directly involved with the situation. So, if you are a parent, the well-being of your children, the raising of your family belongs to you, and it is not for the state to tell you how to educate your child or how to raise your child or something like that, because you are the proper responsible person for that. If we need if we need to put a stoplight or a stop sign at an intersection, we don't write to the Department of the Interior. I don't know this. Some department. We don't write to the President of the United States and his cabinet members to ask permission to put in a stop sign or stoplight. That would go to the city council or those who are involved directly with that, because it's not decision from top down. It's decision making from the bottom up, which is the most responsible person here. So it's a principle that basically teaches that life is not a top-down organization, but rather life, responsibility, and care for creation and care for the world and care for all of our responsibilities belongs to all of us. Mm-hmm. And I have certain responsibilities, and I have to deal with those. I can't be constantly looking up to the chain of command and saying, well, you make the decision, when I'm the one best suited to make that decision.
Sure. So it's looking more of your circle of influences.
Right.
And there are some things that are closer to you and some things that are much further.
Right.
And looking at, well, what are the things closest to you? Because the things that are further, like President of the United States, yes, at a certain level, is responsible for the stop signs.
Right.
To make sure that there's somebody there, within the
right.
So he gets the state, Congress and Senate, then the state, and all that, all the way down. So that's his job, is to make sure that that is all in place.
Everybody
not
has their own
necessarily the minute
responsibility.
Details of, like, he doesn't know if the intersection at 370 and I-80 is busy or not, or he's never been there probably.
Yeah. So
however,
that belongs to someone else.
The
subsidiarity.
City people, they know.
Exactly. The basic principle of subsidiarity, then, if you want to get down to the basic building block of society. Trick question, because many people might think that the basic building block of society is the citizen, the individual citizen. And a well-formed citizen will create a well-formed state or community or whatever. That is false. That is not the basic building block of society. The basic building block of any society is the family. Family is the basic building block. A man and a woman united in marriage that are able to generate new life, and that new life then becomes the basic building block of society. So if there cannot be a generation of life, then there cannot be a building block. And so that image of the family as one man and one woman united in marriage, that is promising to be life-giving. And I say promising to be life-giving because, as it turns out, even though it is our desire to be life-giving, the gift of life is not a right. And so it may be that I am infertile for whatever reason, either temporarily or permanently so, and not able to bear life. But it's not because fundamentally I cannot. It's because of some other issue in the moment, or that is now going to be unchanging. But the image of that man and woman who potentially could produce life becomes the basis for family life. That is the building block of any society.
Imagine that, using a little model in order to build the whole thing.
Yeah, and we talk about the family not only as being the building block of society, but also as being the building block of the church. Mm-hmm. That the family is the domestic church, the church in the home. So what we model, or what we are on the grand scale, we also are in the home.
Yeah, it only makes sense. I mean,
And it's all based on the Trinitarian relationships of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So God is not just a single monad. He is not just this one divine entity or whatever, but he is a Trinitarian relationship of persons that are in love with one another and generate life. Period. Yeah. And so that's a basic building block of society, the principle of subsidiarity. Number 3, the common good.
Common good.
I don't think most people know what the common good is either, Jonathan.
Probably not.
I think that most people have the idea that the common good is whatever is best for the most. Like that's what they would see the common good as. That it's the common good that we do this, and if it sucks for you, well, too bad. That the common good is, that, what do they call that in a city or a state when, it's like, well, I have to take your land because it's for the good of the society. It's on the tip of my tongue. Can you see it?
When your house is big.
Yeah, you all know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That it's
It's for the common good.
It's for the common good. That's not the common good.
You're now homeless, but it's for the common good.
So the common good involves 3 stratas. 3 stratas. 3 stratas. Okay, so if something is going to be for the common good, that means it is good for the whole.
Okay.
If it's for the common good, it is good for the groups within the whole. And if it's the common good, it is going to be good for the individuals within those groups. So the common good is good for the United States. It's good for businesses, for nonprofits, for religious organizations, for government, families. And then it's good for this person, that person, him, her, and so on.
But what about the people that it's not good for?
It's not the common good.
Oh.
It's not the common good. Now, that there will never be a utopian perfect decision. So when you talk about the common good, there will always be people, groups, institutions, whatever, that are not going to benefit. But but then it comes to a moral question, but is it still good? It may not be economically beneficial, even though it's still good. Or it may not be, good for this time in my life, so it's not, expedient, but it's still a good.
So it's never negative.
It depends how it's not an evil. It's not an evil for this person. So it may be it may be a struggle, it may be a hardship, it may be whatever, but the common good is always a good. It is not an evil for. So, we'll go back to the prime example that is always used, in moral situations. When you take a look at Hitler, who's trying to build the perfect human race, and he wants to eliminate certain groups, then those groups are no longer benefiting from the common good, even though he has this vision of a more perfect humanity. Well, it's not good for these groups. You happen to be a Jew, you happen to be a Catholic, you happen to be a homosexual, you're not going to benefit from that because that's not for your good. So something that is good is never evil. Taking away your life isn't evil.
Just a lot.
Yeah. An economic hardship perhaps isn't an evil, but the common good. And so people battle over the common good because you have to kind of sift out what is morally good or evil, and then what is beneficial or not beneficial.
Sure. I thought of a quick example of like a pharmacy company the state or the United States decides you can only profit X percentage of money off of any pharmaceutical you make. Where this guy's making 10,000% profit.
Sure.
And now he's limited to 200% profit. So he's still making money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it works for the common good because then it makes it a little bit more accessible.
There's an example. I mean, I am not an economist, so I don't know if that's good economic.
And that might not be viable.
But
for
it's
that
a good example. But it is a good example of just kind of what we're talking about. It's not an evil to limit one's profitability. For example, there's a measure on the Nebraska ballot to talk about payday lending. Mm-hmm. And the Nebraska Catholic Conference, the bishops of Nebraska, are urging people to vote, to put a cap, to vote for that initiative, to cap the amount of interest that payday lenders can exact upon. I mean, the technical term in that is usury. And usury is forbidden in the moral world.
We can't use other people?
No.
Oh.
And so there is an example that you cannot charge exorbitant fees. That is not an immoral thing, and it is for the common good. So there's just an example.
Good, practical, real example we can put into practice.
There it is. And the fourth, so human person, dignity of the human person, principle of subsidiarity, the common good, and... Jonathan, do you know that fourth pillar?
Not right now, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. Sure I do. Dignity of the human person, subsidiarity. Oh, it's the other S word. Solidarity. Solidarity. Before I couldn't remember the common good, now I can't remember solidarity. Solidarity means that you don't just see things from your perspective. It's super, super easy to go and vote, to go and participate in the political life, only arguing for our perspective. This is going to benefit me. This is going to help my pocketbook. This is going to hurt me or my, whatever, that I see only things from my perspective. Solidarity says that we are joined together. So I also need to recognize that racism is a thing, and even though I personally may have not experienced that in some way, I need to align myself with those who do experience that and try to work for justice in that realm. Or, economics, again, going back to economic policies, while it may not be personally the best thing for me, I do realize that this is perhaps a good thing overall. And I have to align myself with the poor, even if I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing.
Well, that kind of goes in with the common good and with the dignity of human life, that if you are looking for those three things, you cannot have one without living out and doing the others.
Absolutely. We're not islands floating out there on our own, but we are all interrelated, and what benefits some will benefit all, hopefully. I mean, that is the plan. And so the issues, when you look at your ballot, when you deal with this, it's like, okay, so how do I stand with, how do I support those things that are good and moral so that it affects not just me, but that I'm particularly aware of those issues that are more critical than others. It's important. I may not see this as an important issue. Like, that doesn't apply to me, but it applies to someone. And so I need to stand with them. I need to advocate for them. I need to cast my vote in support of what is good, even if I'm never going to feel that impact. Someone else is. And we are joined together as brothers and sisters in the Spirit.
And you have the power to do that. I mean, that's the beauty of living in a democracy, is you represent a vote, which a lot of times we think our vote doesn't matter, but that's only because so many people feel that their vote doesn't matter. If we all took our vote, and if our voting numbers were closer to like 90 to 100%, the elections might turn out very differently.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this year, because I think we might have some, I don't know if there's going to be record numbers. I know there certainly are record numbers of early voting, mail-in voting, early voting. I think I just saw something in the news the other day about like Texas has already received like so many mail-in ballots that it's like 80% of the total population that voted in the last election. So 80% of that number has already voted early. And Texas has made it hard to vote early. So, I mean, those people have wanted to get out there and vote early and vote often. No. Vote early. Vote early and vote once. Exactly. No. But, so these are four main things to start. You know, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow. But just to remember that these principles, dignity of the human person, solidarity, subsidiarity, and the common good should also kind of frame how we approach our Catholic social life.
Amen.
Jonathan, I feel one with you. Solidarity, brother.
Solidarity.
Bye.